It is Friday, November 29th, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today, presented to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum of the NFL. That is one spicy dude, Bobby Skinner. I am Chris Rose. Justin Pennick rode to go watch the Buckeyes and the Wolverines from Columbus, Ohio on Saturday. Producer Dan is sitting in today. And man, oh man, Thursday's three games. Well, they were interesting, but not as interesting as what happened on Friday. Windy City, Chicago Bears looking for a new head coach. Matt Eberflus, after I don't know what happened at the end of the loss against the Detroit Lions, but he was fired. Thomas Brown, who was elevated to offensive coordinator a couple of years ago or a couple of weeks ago, is now the new head man in charge on an interim basis. First of all, you shocked at all, Bobby?
No, it really felt like it was going this way when you can see that he had lost the locker room completely, and then you make a decision that bad. You mess that end of game thing up so bad where it's not talking about the casual fan and the way he coached. Just everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, that person's an idiot." Whoever messed that up, that they knew they were going to fire Eberflus, and they figured they'd get it done with now. So the Bears, and this is the first time they've ever fired a coach in season, and they've done plenty of coach firings in Chicago.
Yeah, well, it's not like this is an expansion team. This is a team that's been around more than 100 years, and the first time they're getting rid of a head football coach in the middle of a season. I think what this has shown is that we now have had three firings during the season. Robert Saleh up with the Jets, Dennis Allen down with the Saints, and now Matt Eberflus. What do they all have in common? They've got a defensive background. Teams are, first of all, impatient. We know that, but you damn well better have a great handle on things like a D'Amico Ryans if you come from a defensive background you've been hired in the last 5 years. Because I think the leash is so short with the importance of the development of young quarterbacks and knowing what you're doing at the quarterback position. It didn't happen with Zach Wilson up there in New York. It hasn't happened so far with Caleb Williams. You're going to have a very short leash if you have a defensive mind.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been through these head coach hirings quite a bit as a Giants fan, and last time around, I was like, I want an offensive coach, right? Because if he's good, I don't want to have to worry about if things go good, I don't want to have to worry about losing a good offensive coordinator every 2 years. It's like I want an offensive coach. Obviously, would I take D'Amico Ryans as my head coach? Absolutely, but I just feel like if you have a good offensive coach, that keeps your floor pretty high throughout his tenure. But it just for Chicago though, it this was so easy to see last offseason. It's like, oh gosh, you're kind of resetting the timeline with the new quarterback. You get a new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, who we mentioned they fired a couple weeks ago. And then you get this lame duck defensive coach. Lame duck defensive coach. And it's like this is where it's gonna go because they had all these expectations, and if they fall somewhat short of them, he'll get the axe. And they haven't just fell short of them. They've lost six straight games.
And it's the way they've lost six straight games, right? It goes back to the Hail Mary where Tyreek Stevenson was either firing up his own fans or jawing with Washington fans, depending on which story you believe. Then they have the blocked field goal against Green Bay. Then they come all the way back to force overtime against the Minnesota Vikings and win the coin toss. And what happens? They end up not moving, and Caleb Williams takes a terrible sack after having 10 seconds to throw the ball, and the Vikings go down and score the game winning field goal. So it's not just losing six in a row, which is bad enough. But the fact is that it feels like they're a coaching move or two away from, maybe being 3-3 in some of those games and maybe being in playoff contention. So they've got to figure this out. They've got to get an offensive brainchild in there. They've got to first and foremost get a guy who can maximize Caleb Williams' ability. It's that simple.
I think their offseason plan is simple. Be interested. It seems like Ryan Poles is going to stay through all of this. Well, I think Ryan Poles has done a pretty solid job
Mm-hmm.
as the GM.
Yeah.
I've kind of had a theory that I don't know if he's been the best GM. He's just kind of gotten lucky with, the Panthers being
Mm-hmm.
such a mess of a franchise and lucking into that. But at the end of the day, results are what matters. And I think he's built together a pretty good roster. Um, they need to take this offseason, find that offensive head coach, right? That offensive head coach and guarantee him security, right? Like give him the Matt Rule contract that Carolina got, even though that didn't guarantee him security, but guarantee that like we're really invested in this. And then spend all your money and your draft capital in the trenches. Like you've your secondary's sick, your receiver room is really good. I'm not on the board of this like DJ Moore is in good train that some people have jumped on. And then Caleb Williams needs to improve because even through all of this, Caleb Williams has played very bad at times. Including the first half of the game yesterday, he was missing wide open guys, throwing hospital balls. But they need to get an offensive coach who can slow things down, give him some easy buttons, and then hopefully we get the Caleb that we thought we'd get with the first overall pick.
And by the way, I'm not so sure that there's a ton of offensive gurus. It feels like there's not a huge selection this time around, right? Obviously, Ben Johnson is a guy you know, who's going to be number one at the top of everybody's list. But the shine has left Bobby Slowick a little bit down there in Houston, and we'll see how many other young masterminds there are. I mean, do you go out and get a Dan Lanning from the University of Oregon and say that's our guy?
I'm not a big fan of the college to the NFL. I know there's times where it does really work out, but I don't love that. I look for I look for what I think is sometimes these offensive coaches that are great aren't obvious.
Hmm.
Kevin O'Connell, that hiring was slandered. That hiring was slandered, and now he
You're
may
right.
win Coach of the Year. Sean McVay, I mean, it was like the 29 years old. Like
Mhm.
that's insane. Like I remember being 25 and like saying to my friend, like you would be the coach of the Rams right now. Like so you got to do it. Like they're there, right? It could even be someone like Zach Robinson in Atlanta. No one's getting him getting the name pop, but like we've seen the McVay tree work out, so something like that. But here's another part: is they got to figure out they got to find the right defensive coach too, because sometimes we lose these defensive coaches and just assume the defenses are going to stay really good. And
Good point.
Chicago can. I love their secondary. They can improve those trenches. But like, you have to make sure that side of the ball stays well too, because that side's a little harder to sustain throughout years.
All right, very quickly, Giants, Cowboys, not super interesting on Thanksgiving Day. The nightcap, Packers take care of the Dolphins in the freezing temperatures, 30-17, the final. In 1 minute here, do you think the Packers have solidified themselves as the third best team in the NFC behind the Lions and the Eagles?
No, I don't, because I think the Vikings are right there. But I'll say this: I don't think they've solidified themselves as not even the second best team, right? So I think the Eagles, the
Hmm.
Packers, and the Vikings are all kind of like still in my mind. You could make an argument that they are the second best team in the NFC right now, and I think all three of those teams can beat the Lions on a playoff Sunday, even though I'm picking the Lions to win the Super Bowl this year. So no, but I think you can make an argument that they're the second best team too.
Yeah, I think they've got the highest ceiling out of those three teams. And a lot of people say, well, what do you mean? The Eagles, look at the talent on their roster. Well, to me, if it comes down to coaching, I like Green Bay's coach way more than I like Philadelphia's coach. I also think that if Jordan Love can improve and be the second half Jordan Love that we saw in 2023, I don't know if they can give Detroit a great run, but I know that that would scare Dan Campbell because he played exceptionally well. It's what earned him the long-term deal was his play last year. He wasn't good the first half of this season, but I've started to see things the last couple of weeks, primarily not turning the ball over and making some big-time throws where I feel better about where he's at.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean that's where he got insanely hot last year. Well, the first half of last year looked worse than this year, but you still had all the turnovers and stuff that you mentioned. So yeah, I think the NFC is pretty wide open between
Hmm.
those four. I think Atlanta or even if Tampa got in could make a little noise. I'm not really buying anyone in. I'm not really not buying Washington when it comes to the playoffs. And then out west, I can't buy into any of those teams unless the 49ers get healthy and start looking like themselves.
Well, today's episode of Football Today is presented to you by 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy shots help you feel alert and energized. Each shot is packed with vitamins, nutrients, and about as much caffeine as the leading premium coffee. And here's something that'll help out your figure. Contains zero sugar. So you'll drink it in seconds, you'll feel it in minutes, it'll last for hours. It's available in a wide range of great flavors across regular strength and extra strength varieties. And the shots are portable. They're cute little things. They're convenient. They go with you for that feeling of energy whenever and wherever you need it. So head on over to 5hourenergy.com. Use the code JOHNBOY to save 20% on your first order. That is the number 5hourenergy.com, code JOHNBOY to save 20%. And if you need a little shot of something when it comes to content creation, keep tuning in to us here over on our Warehouse Games channel every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. We've got a playoff edition of Blitzball Battle 5. Here's a sneak peek.
Playoff time here at the Warehouse Blitzball Battle 5. Del Caribe and Hook, Line, Sinker.
I'm just saying there's a lot of Del Caribe fans sitting around here.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if you hear a lot of cheering for them and not a lot for Dan.
Both teams have been sputtering. I think I'm going to have to take Hook Line. They both can pitch, and we can see them potentially start to hit if our little golden retriever, Drew Davis, starts to get the bat going. Dan Canobio has been great on the mound. So I'm going to go ahead and take Hook, Line, Sinkers.
I'm going to go with Del Caribe.
Wow, holy smokes. Del Caribe has never won as Team Del Caribe in a Blitzball battle. That ends today. Come on, Joe's McFly. I believe in Joe's McFly. I believe in Joe's McFly. Can't wait to get the playoff party started. Blitzball Battle 5 presented to you by DraftKings.
So we'll see you in the chat. Once again, it's every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. It is a blast. This Sunday, this game could be a blast. Best one of the day, in our opinion. Philadelphia putting its 7-game winning streak on the line as it travels to Baltimore. Is the biggest story in this game whether or not the Ravens defense, which played very well last week against the Chargers, if it can slow down Philadelphia?
Yes, that is the biggest storyline for me because the Eagles' offense has been really good as late, but it's been very simplistic, right? Hand the ball off to Saquon, throw the ball to AJ Brown. Like it's been a very simplistic offense. The Ravens starting to get, still not a good defense, but figuring it out. Can they stop a simplistic offense that's but a very good offense in the Philadelphia Eagles? Because I feel like these are two teams that are considered Super Bowl contenders, but you still have questions about. Those are their two questions. Can the Eagles offense sustain and win playoff games like this? And can the Ravens defense do enough for them to be able to win consistent playoff games? So yeah, I mean that's what I'm looking for. The other thing, Rose, is I hope Derrick Henry and Saquon combine for 500 rushing yards. Like I hope this isn't an off game for either one. I want to see running back versus running back.
Yeah, and I think you have to remember the role that the quarterbacks play in the running game too, particularly Lamar. I feel like Baltimore this year, more so than any other season with Lamar, has dialed back his running. Like they are simply saying, we will run you when we get inside the 10. I still feel like that's a big part of their offense. When they're at the 7 or 8, when it's the 2-yard line, let's give it to Derrick Henry. But when we're at the 7 and 8, maybe Lamar will still run it in. And we know what Jalen Hurts can do with the football, whether it's on the tush push or near the goal line. He feels like he's their big goal line back, all that sort of stuff. So I'm curious to see whether or not this is the game that they bust Lamar out in that area. Defensively, we just feel like Ravens need to take some sort of step because if they don't win their division, which I still think that they have a shot, it feels like at minimum they're going to have to play 2 road games to get to the Super Bowl in the AFC. And I don't know if they're going to be able to stop Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen in consecutive weeks. And I think this is a real good tune-up for them. So I don't know. One other thing, Lamar's record against the NFC, it is still, every time I look at it, it's just utterly preposterous. 23-1 against the NFC.
I've heard, and the one is to the New York Giants and old Danny Dimes.
Yeah.
And you know who the defensive coordinator for that game was? Wink Martindale, who was the defensive coordinator for the Ravens. So the theory on that is that it's really hard to prepare for Lamar when you don't see him
right
at least once per year. Like that's the theory. Well, and it's already really hard to prepare for Lamar, but that is just flat out preposterous that they've been able to continue to pull that off. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's at home too, so yeah. So who do you? I don't know. I don't know who I want to go in this game.
Meaning what? Who you're rooting for, or who you want to have go off?
Who do I think's going to win? Like I think this is a Ravens victory, right? Or is this a game where the Eagles just simply run all over them, throw go balls to AJ Brown, and Vic Fangio, shuts it down a bit?
So it's a short week for the Ravens. Long flight home. You don't get back until real early Tuesday morning. Start your prep. You have a Thanksgiving week. I don't know. I mean, I always feel like the Ravens, the one thing I never have to worry about with the Ravens and that coaching staff is whether or not they're prepared. Um, this is a big one, I think, for them because we're going to talk about the other AFC North game with the Bengals and the Steelers momentarily, but I really feel like John Harbaugh feels like they're in a decent position. Like they've got a real good shot at that 3 seed at worst, that they could definitely win that division and feel good about themselves moving forward. So I expect that and Philly, it's hard to win. They haven't lost since September.
Yeah, and it's not like they've been smacking like good team. They beat the Commanders. That's a good win.
Hmm.
Um, Outside of that, they haven't really beat any good teams outside of the Green Bay Packers.
No, I mean they had a good solid win
The
Sunday
Rams,
night against the
yeah, the
Rams.
Rams are a decent team, but at the end of the day, I think they're still below 500. Yeah, I mean that game put them under 500. But it's just with Philly, this is a big game for me where, like I said in the beginning, I want to see can they run this type of offense on a Baltimore defense that's not very good, but also like doesn't feel like you should just be able to take advantage of type of defense.
Okay, so your pick is
Ravens. I got the Ravens. The NFC streak or NFC record gets stronger.
yep. I will take the Ravens in this one. All right, what do you got with Captain Morgan?
Oh, what do I got, guys? Well, guess what? This episode is brought to you by Captain Morgan. Football Today is presented by Captain Morgan, the official spice rum of the NFL. And they sponsored our Captain Morgan's Playmakers League with fantasy football. Rose, who's in your fantasy football league? Give us some name drops.
There are no name drops. It's simply a family league. I do one league. That's what I'm allowed by NFL rules. We have certain rules we have to abide by, and so that's what I'm doing is one league, and I stink at it. Like I've made the playoffs like maybe twice in my history, and this year I felt not only good about my team, but a 5-2 start, and I have not won since then.
So
So, and I'm off to a terrible start this week because Malik Neighbors has to play with crappy quarterbacks. So
ooh,
shame on
ooh.
me.
But
Yeah.
they force fed him this week because he was crying about it and then he dropped two
Yes.
passes.
Yes, he did.
So I feel like I'm the Andy Reid of fantasy football. I do the one league as well too, and it's been same friends from high school, and I feel like I've been a top two player in this league for 10 plus years now. I've never won the championship.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah, but I'm the number one seed right now. But it's like, can I get over the hump and win a championship? And then I'll be named the greatest of all, best coach in the league. But until that, I'm just old Andy Reid messing stuff up. So thank you again to Captain Morgan for presenting the Captain Morgan Playmakers League. Captain Morgan, it's just the freaking best, people. So please drink responsibly. Captain Morgan Original Spice Rum, 35% alcohol by volume. Captain Morgan Rum Company, New York, New York.
All right, we continue on. Steelers at Bengals. Big one for both teams, especially the Bengals, who feel like they could still get back in this thing, even though they're 4-7. Do you think the Bengals are going to use this as a springboard toward a playoff run, or is it over?
I actually think the Bengals are going to win this game. I think their offense is really good. I think they get the Steelers this week. I'm done. The Bengals are a bad football team. And I don't think a bad football team's making the playoffs in the Cincinnati Bengals. They are a good passing offense. They're an awful rushing offense, and they're an awful defense. Um, it's a shame we won't get that type of like an Joe Burrow's having an all-pro type of season, and I think he's gonna have to miss the playoffs because I mean who is that excuse me, who of the teams that are in do you see them kicking out? I don't see any of them.
Well, listen, the Steelers are in a really interesting position because they play the Bengals twice, they play the Browns, they play the Ravens, they play the Eagles, and they play the Chiefs. That is not an easy schedule. I mean, I think everything but Cleveland could be real dicey for them. Is it possible they only get one more win out of this and end up at 9 wins? And now you're shaking your head.
I mean, they're too good of a team to have that. I can see them winning two or three games maybe, if things don't go beautifully. But to have one win, no, I think they're too good of a defense. They understand what their identity is on offense. Um, that I don't see it happening.
But they're back to not scoring touchdowns.
I agree, but their defense is good enough where they can win like that.
But not necessarily against these teams. That's okay against certain teams, but not against most of these teams. The
Sure,
Bengals,
but they'll
they,
they'll score some. I mean, they're not banished from the end zone for the rest of the season.
I get it, but the Bengals have lost 5 games this year when they score at least 25 points. 5 games. That is a ton. When you're putting up those sort of numbers, you expect to win. That I don't think that they can keep up with Philadelphia. I don't think that they can keep up with Baltimore on the road and Kansas City. I mean, they're a way better version of the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. That's how I look at them. So
I
yes,
think
I
that
would count Cleveland as an easy win. Other than that, not everything else to me is that could be dicey.
even then, the Bengals are 4 games back though, with 6 weeks left. Like that's to me, that's insurmountable to catch up. We don't the Broncos like I don't see them catching 3 games on the Broncos with their schedule. The Texans are, they've won their division. The Chargers are gonna finish out the season, make the playoffs. The Ravens no, Bills no. Like they're I just I there and here's the thing when talking about the Bengals, because I want to be excited about the Bengals, and again, I'm picking them this game. Like I think they're gonna win this one game.
Hmm.
But they're not a good team.
I,
Like
I I know.
they're not a 4-7 team. Like, oh man, if just they were a little more lucky. No, they're 4-7 because they're not a good team. They're a great passing team, great quarterback, and usually we say that means good team, and most of the time it does. With this team, that's not what it means. They're a bad team that has great quarterbacking play.
Well, I can tell you this. Joe Burrow looks like he has got the ass every press conference. I think he feels like it has been a totally wasted year.
It
Usually
has been.
it
This might
has
be his
been.
best season in the NFL.
I don't think
Like
there's a question
if
about it.
if the defense was better and they were 7-4,
He'd be
it
up
would
for
be
MVP.
MVP conversation right now would be Lamar versus Burrow, and
Yep.
maybe have some Lamar fatigue because he's won 2 and 1 last year,
Hmm.
and Burrow would be having it. Like we did our All Pro team on Wednesday. Joe Burrow was my second team All Pro for quarterback.
He's been incredible. I don't think they're out of it. Maybe that's just because I like watching their offense play. But I too think that they are winners this weekend.
Yeah, I don't want them. Like I want them in the playoffs because like I want to see this type of quarterback in the playoffs because once they get there, they can beat anybody. But they're to me they're just a bad team that has great quarterbacking play, which is very rare in the NFL, but it is what it is.
All right, let's go through the rest of the Sunday and then Monday slate for our picks, which we are just incredible at. Chargers on the road at Atlanta.
Chargers got to get back on track. Chargers win this game.
Yeah, this one makes me a little queasy. I feel like we haven't seen Atlanta play in about 3 weeks, so I can't tell whether or not they're going to be sharp or dull. I guess I'll go Chargers. Arizona at Minnesota, kind of an interesting one.
Minnesota ends up winning that game. Arizona. I could see them bouncing back and having a little bit of success with Flores, but I think Minnesota ends up winning that game.
You
One
know
and
what?
zero in the Daniel Jones era.
Arizona always wins a road game that you're like, how the heck did they win that? I think this is the one. I think they'll run the ball effectively. I think Kyler will bounce back after a tough performance up there in Seattle. I think they get a road win. Colts up in Foxborough.
Gosh, these are the hardest games to pick at this time of year. Um, I, I'll go Patriots. I picked them last week. They didn't win. I'll pick them to win this week.
I do too. I haven't checked the forecast up there, but I know it's going to start to get cold. I don't know how many cold weather games Anthony Richardson has played in because they only played the first month of his rookie year and he played his college ball at Florida. So we'll see. Seattle at the Jets.
Seahawks end up winning. I mean, they're a better team.
They are
They're
a better
fighting for a
team.
division. The Jets are just a joke. So
Yeah, they sure are, which is exactly why I'm picking the Jets. There you go. Tennessee coming off a big win against Houston on the road at Washington.
I kind of want to pick this as my upset of the week because I picked Tennessee last week. Washington gets back on track. They win this game.
Yeah, I think so too. I know Cliff Kingsbury's hearing it again about how everything fails in the second half of the year, but Tennessee already got their big win. I don't think they can double it up. Houston at Jacksonville, which is coming off a bye.
Texans.
Yeah. It sounds like Trevor Lawrence is going to be back in there, which is good because I cannot watch Mac Jones play quarterback anymore. Um, I will put this caveat in there. If Trevor Lawrence plays, I'll go with Jacksonville. If he doesn't, I'll go with Houston. There you
Oh,
go.
that's
Mark.
damn. I wish I had that for Brandon Allen last. The 49ers with their injury report, it just comes out of freaking nowhere with them. But
I know. Well, that was a late Friday. We had already put this one to bed. So yeah, that happens occasionally. Rams on the road at the Saints.
Rams.
Yeah, yeah, I'll go there too. Tampa Bay at Carolina.
Woo! Can Carolina? They won a game. They put 27 on the Chiefs. But the Bucks win. Bucks are trying to get back into that playoff hunt. I think they're not. I think they're actually a pretty good team. I'm going to go with the Bucks.
Yep, I think Tampa's winning this one, and I think they're going to stick around the last month of the year. And Sunday night, it sounds like the weather's going to be horrible in Buffalo when San Francisco comes a calling. What do you got there?
Bills got to win this game. If they lose this game, I feel like it's kind of embarrassing with what San Fran is right now, especially like you said in Buffalo in the cold.
San Francisco's got everything going against it, doubling up on the tough travel while going home in between. Still don't know if the quarterback is close to healthy, and they're going into a snowstorm. Yeah, this is just all Buffalo all the way. And then Monday night, Cleveland at Denver.
Woo! That's a fun one. Broncos. I mean, that defense is too much for Cleveland's offense.
Exactly. They rush the quarterback, which means that when Jameis gets rushed, he will make poor decisions, or we just call them Jameis decisions. And unfortunately, I think Denver does get the win, and looks like they'll improve to 8-5. We are back at it on Monday to wrap up all things Week 13. Justin Pennick will be back from his Ohio excursion. So big shout out to Dan Rourke for filling in today. For Bobby Skinner, I am Chris Rose. We will see you Monday here on Football Today, presented to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum of the NFL.